What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Check the Kick. Host Devin. Sorry we took a couple weeks off. I did decide to take off the last card, the Jandiroba versus Lemos. I did not record a preview for that or a recap for the Rose fight. Prior to that, I did do a recap of the Diaz Masvidal and then a preview for the Rose Namajunas card. However, our dear friend Mr. Ben Duffy was fighting a hurricane. Thankfully, they survived. Everything is all good, most importantly, but we weren't able to get the show chopped up and edited for you guys. But here we are, back off of what seemed to be lackluster card that turned into actually a pretty damn good fight night card, and then a little bit of a, I want to call it celebrity boxing, but I'm just going to call it low skill popular person fight, I guess you could say, between Paul and Perry, but all is well over here at Check the Kick. Happy to be back. We're gonna go ahead and just kick off the show. Jake Paul defeats Mike Perry via 6-round TKO stoppage. Perry had been dropped 3 times. This was the 3rd time he was dropped, and then he could not continue. He made it. He made the standing 8 count. However, when the ref, took a couple step backs and said, "Walk to me," Perry was, stumbling all over the place. So he was not fit to continue. Therefore, the ref called the stop to the contest. This fight, I can't believe I'm even talking about Jake Paul knocking out Mike Perry. This fight was a very strange fight. You could definitely tell there was a weight class difference, major difference between these two guys coming in here. And that's not an excuse for Perry. Perry is not a good fighter. He is a dog. He's an absolute animal. He's tougher than, he's got to be one of the most tough humans on the whole planet. Super durable, takes shots and keeps on walking forward. But in this fight, he just whatever chances he had to having success in this fight, he kind of threw them out the window with his game plan. This is one where I feel like if I had a controller and I was playing as Mike Perry, I would have done better than he did. I just don't know what he was thinking. He was just walking Jake Paul down with his hands, kind of at his sides, not using any sort of cutting off footwork, not cutting off the ring at all, and kind of just walked into tons of big shots. The first drop upon replay was definitely like a pull counter from Jake. However, Perry was kind of off balance. But when you're the smaller guy, and you're boxing with gloves and not bare knuckle. And this is something that Mike, number one, bare knuckle is just different. Like you can tell when dudes get hit in bare knuckle, they panic immediately. Like things break, chips, teeth chip, lips blow up, you get cut really easily. So 2 or 3 big power punches in bare knuckle, like if you're willing to just bite on the mouthpiece and put your opponent on the back foot and hit them with something really hard with a bare knuckle and they're in your weight class, Mike Perry has shook up tons of dudes. But with the big boxing gloves on, he's just walking forward. And I'm not surprised because it's Mike Perry and he's not the epitome of high fight IQ. But in this past weekend, I saw a lot of low fight IQ fights where the, fighter that lost, maybe they were at a skill deficit. However, their fight IQ was just low, really low in that, really low. And for Perry, really low here. If you're going to be the smaller guy that, has to put your opponent on the back foot and relies on pressure and big hooks and power, like high guard, bob, weave, uppercuts, hooks are on the guard, put your opponent against the cage, jab him in the stomach, aim for his chest, and walk forward, high guard, and just cut your opponent off. Use footwork. Like even if you had a month to train for this, like if I was Perry, my whole month would have been training high guard, forward pressure, jabbing them in the chest, pushing them against the back of the cage, and letting go with big combos. because the couple times he like landed on Paul, you could tell like Perry's got good power, and you could tell they flustered Paul, but Jake Paul was just, his check hook was really, really good. He had a lot of success with the check hook. His hand speed is there. And his big right hand, like he's got good power. And when you match a dude when you got a guy that is semi-athletic, on steroids, tons and tons of money, and can focus their time on actually getting good at something, like that's what you get with Jake Paul. Like he's not the best boxer. He's not some crazy tenured boxer either. I think he has 10 pro fights now, and all of them are against like UFC welterweights or old people. He and you can't be mad at him. Like he's navigating his career very wisely. You know, he's doing all the right things, picking all the right opponents, and he's beating the dudes that are getting put up in front of him. When he fights a boxer, even though they're a low level, a boxer of his same size, age, and what you would probably say caliber, Tommy Fury, he loses. But there's a reason why he's not looking to fight another Tommy. There's a reason why this was Mike Perry. There's a reason why he's calling out Mike Tyson. He's not a fool. He's going to... there's no... If I challenge a soccer player, for example, to a game of soccer, they're going to beat me every single time. If I challenge them to a game of dodgeball, my success goes way up, especially if I start training dodgeball and get really, really good at it. You know, then I'll probably have a lot of success because, yeah, soccer involves a ball and it involves you moving around, but it's not dodgeball. And that's exactly what Jake Paul is doing with MMA fighters in a boxing ring. He is hyper-focused on boxing. He can pay the best trainers. He can train his ass off and then fight someone that comes from a different combat sport that doesn't have the same training in boxing and beat them. And then he also handicaps them by making sure they're so far been UFC welterweights or an old Anderson Silva that just kind of showed up to do something fun. But again, can't be mad at him. He's, you know, there's a game he's playing. If you don't know the game, that's on you, and he's winning. You know, that's just is what it is. And Jake Paul didn't look bad. Mike Perry looked bad. He made Mike Perry look bad. Second round of the fight, Mike Perry just walked into everything, got teed off on. Credit to him for getting his bell rung multiple times, getting dropped, but getting up and putting the forward pressure. Third round, he caught Jake with a big left hook, and kind of caused him to look tired, get a little bit shook up. Fourth round, though, you know, it looked like things were swinging in Perry's favor. I even told myself, Perry might finish this fight after seeing that third round comeback from Perry. Some people probably scored that third round for him, but then it became a clean sweep. Jake went back to the stool, got a spray of his new version of Axe body spray, whatever that failing company will end up being. W. Got a spray of his stuff and went back out there and got recharged and won rounds 4 and 5 and then stopped Perry in the 6th. What's next for Jake Paul? Probably, unfortunately, Mike Tyson. I just, like, this is a show that I try to take pretty freaking seriously, and I talk about, like, serious combat sports athletes, and then here I am starting the show off with Jake Paul talking about Mike Tyson. Like, it pains me. Fuck. But, yeah, probably Mike Tyson. We're all super thrilled about that. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. The only thing that excites me about Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is the fact that it will be on Netflix. It'll be the first sporting event on Netflix. It'll be a combat sporting event. It'll be live, and that will open the door as a streaming service for other combat sports to usher themselves in. Will that be the UFC? Fucking hopefully they get off ESPN Plus. That'd be great. The second UFC's off ESPN Plus, I cancel my membership. Done. Even though I think mine comes in that stupid Hulu and Disney Plus package. I don't even know why I pay for that. I don't watch much TV, and when I watch TV, like I'm watching combat sports stuff. Whatever. That's neither here nor there. Yeah, the only thing that excites me about Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson is that Netflix deal and what door that could open for streaming and what that could bring for the fans. You know, if that makes the product better, cool. If that can make the fighters more money, cool. I'm all right with that. Mike Perry, what's next for him? Nothing. No bare knuckle, because apparently he is fired from the organization. Conor McGregor, a partial stakeholder in BKFC, has went on a Twitter rant right after the fight. I'm recording this on Monday afternoon / evening. If you're listening to this, you're a combat sports fan. You're probably a nerd about it like me, and you probably already saw the Conor McGregor tweets. If you haven't, they're funny. He fired him, and then he went after Jake Paul. Conor McGregor is doing what he always does, and it's just a tried and true technique for him. It's a good method for him, where anytime another big fighter, popular fighter that's not named Conor McGregor does something that gets a lot of headlines over the weekend, he will tweet something at them regarding the event. And then that'll get a bunch of media, and then he'll just get the attention from it. Yeah, it's lame as hell, but that's what Conor McGregor does. And he, you know, someone shines a light on someone else and he jumps right in front of it. It's all about him. But it was pretty funny. I don't think Conor McGregor can fire him. Mike Perry also released this new weird boxing organization that's going to allow like elbows and ground and pound, but no wrestling. So basically, just like for all the like people that call grappling and wrestling hugging, this may be the sport for you. It'll be like partially owned and it'll be spearheaded by Mike Perry. I don't know. Mike Perry also, I feel bad for him, because they used him like the king of violence, blah, blah, blah. Jake Paul had like a lot of respect for Mike Perry after the fight and everything, but then like posted on social media, like kind of talking shit about him. So whatever. But I kind of feel bad for Perry, besides the fact he probably got paid an F ton of money. Just because the you know, everything was stacked against him, and he just kind of got tooled and beat up pretty bad in this fight. But good win for Jake Paul, bad loss for Mike Perry, low fight IQ from Perry, high IQ from Jake in fight, and also just managing his career. He also called out Alex Pereira, which is like, anybody that knows anything knows that's a genius call out, because Alex Pereira is the current UFC light heavyweight champion. The UFC is not going to release Alex out of his contract to box Jake Paul. And he understands, he's doing what I just said Conor McGregor does. He understands a lot of hype. A lot of people are in love with Alex Pereira right now, myself included. And just speaking his name is going to get you those clicks. It's going to get you those tweets. Jake Paul went into this fight with Mike Perry knowing he was probably going to beat him. Jake Paul knows gosh damn well Alex Pereira would send his head into another planet. But he also knows the fight will never happen, so who gives a shit? And it makes him look good. So yeah, good, you know, all around smart job by Jake Paul, and I can't believe I'm saying that. Moving on to Virna Jandiroba submitting Amanda Lemos via armbar, and we're going to talk about that and then just mention a couple other things from that fight card. I really want to focus mostly on UFC 304 this episode. The UFC Fight Night Lemos versus Jandiroba ended up being a decent card, but I'm sure you guys would rather hear about UFC 304. Virna Jandiroba defeats Amanda Lemos via round 2 armbar submission at 448 of that second round. And this is a fight that was going to be a tale of two fights either way, but this is a fight that in my eyes could have almost been set up for Lemos to win. Lemos got multiple advantageous positions in the grappling in this fight, and instead of using those positions to disengage and get back to the striking, she just continued to re-engage Jandiroba in the grappling and would find herself in bad spots over and over again. In the first round, she gives up the easiest takedown that I've ever seen by trying to jump guillotine instead of trying to down block and then fight for underhooks and then get the fuck out. And stuff like this is really frustrating for me to watch because Amanda Lemos is like top 5 best athletes in women's MMA right now when it comes to just pure athleticism and athletic abilities. And she's one of the best athletes that's ever been at women's 115. When I say athletes, I don't mean how good of a fighter she is. I mean just in pure athleticism, like fast twitch muscles, quickness, power, speed, hand speed. She's got venomous striking with big power. She was so much faster than Jandiroba. And anytime she was on the feet with Jandiroba had nothing for her. Jandiroba was shooting bad takedowns, like football tackles, because she's not a good wrestler, and still having success there. There was so many moments where they were in grappling exchanges that were initiated by Lemos, which is just foolish. And then Lemos would lose his position and then get a reversal and then continue to try to even be in Jandiroba's guard on top, where it's like you are 100% in advantage when you guys are on the feet. But the second you guys hit the mat, it becomes 70-30 and it's not in your favor. Just a foolish fight by Amanda Lemos, in my opinion. Just a bad game plan here. Whatever chances she had to win this fight, she kind of balled them up and threw them in the bin. And maybe I have high hopes for Amanda Lemos, so this was kind of something that disappointed me. But at this point, she's like an athletic underachiever because there should be no reason why somebody with her skills matched up against Jandiroba should not win 7 out of 10 times, in my opinion. Just with the right game plan, keeping the fight on the feet, using your striking, using your speed, using your outside footwork, make Jandiroba pay when trying to wrestle, like throw uppercuts, knees. Why are you engaging her in the grappling? It was just a frustrating fight. Good on Jandiroba. The way that she went from back mount to armbar, that transition was beautiful. And I'm not here to hate on Jandiroba. She's a pretty good fighter. She's 36 years old. Lemos is 37. But women's MMA is just not, I don't want to say it's not as good as it used to be, but I'll say the women's strawweight division, like 115, is probably not as good as it used to be. With Rose gone, Joanna Jędrzejczyk and all that. But in 2024, I just don't think it's the epitome of high-level MMA, maybe as much as it used to be, again, with like Rose and JJ on top. But Jandiroba being such a limited fighter, but having this much success shows you where the division is. But you can't hate her. Like, this is her best win. This is, Lemos is a formal title challenger. She was defeated by Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili couldn't finish Lemos. Jandiroba did. Again, I don't think the actual finish was something that – the finish is beautiful. The back to armbar transition, but Lemos' fight IQ with the grappling in this fight was just poor. Not high fight IQ. And it's strange to see someone, because she's another tenured veteran. She's had plenty of fights with the organization, fought all the way from the bottom up to a title. and is now, fighting backwards in the rankings. And now what's going to happen to Lemos is she's going to get matched up with someone that the UFC likes, a finisher. She's going to get matched up with somebody like Jillian Robertson probably. And Jillian Robertson has definitely enough of a grappling game to, especially if Lemos is going to go out there and try to meet her with grappling, like Jillian Robertson could totally win a fight like that. And that's where Lemos is she's going to go from being someone that was a violent fighter to becoming a stepping stone because she just can't get her fight IQ in check. Jandiroba probably won't fight for a title in her next fight, even though she probably deserves it, but we don't know what's going to happen with this division. We don't know what's going on with Tatiana Suarez. I wouldn't. One thing that Jandiroba does have in her favor is that she's, has consistently stayed active. She just beat Lemos. Prior to that, she beat Lupi, which was a really good win. Before that, she beat Marina Rodriguez, which is another pretty good win, beat Angela Hill. So she's on a decent roll. Her last loss was against Amanda Lemos. That was in 2021. And Lemos is like up a division and is meddling. So, and she's active. If something happens to Zhang Weili, I could totally see them trying to do an interim title between Jandiroba and Tatiana Suarez, but Jandiroba's readiness and willingness to fight and Tatiana Suarez's unreadiness and inability to fight. I'm sure Suarez is willing to fight. She's just not able to. She can't get healthy enough to fight. So I totally think that could be a benefit for her. There's not really anyone else there at the moment. If the UFC needs a co-main event in November or October or something, or they're trying to juice a card and they slide Zhang Weili in there, they probably will call Virna. One of those title fights that happens like on 8 weeks notice to just make it happen. I could totally see it. That's how Virna gets a title shot. But yeah, the transition from back mount to armbar, like if you guys didn't catch this card, I kind of don't blame you because it wasn't that good on paper, even though it ended up being pretty good. But that back control to armbar was a thing of beauty, really slick. So awesome win by Jandiroba. She leveled up and she showed that she, is ready for those bigger challenges. Rest of the card, the prelims are terrible. Steve Garcia racks off another knockout win. I think he's at like 4 or 5 knockouts in a row. I think he has the most knockouts on the roster, which is crazy active roster right now. Sung Woo Choi, just why are you getting into a brawl with Steve Garcia? It took Steve Garcia less than 2 minutes. The dude has gotten so much more confident with his power, and I think his biggest thing is confidence in general in the pocket, where he's not getting as shook up with big shots anymore. He can stay composed under fire. He's like kind of becoming the World Series of Fighting Justin Gaethje. So that was pretty fucking cool. Bruno Silva knocking out Cody Durden after Cody Durden looked like the flyweight champion of the world. Like, he looked incredible for literally the first 7 minutes of this fight. The fight, Bruno Silva won via knockout at 2 minutes and 58 seconds of the second round, and Cody Durden was outclassing him for the first round of the fight in the first 2 minutes of the second round. Like, the submission attempts, just the striking, he was like even mocking him at some points, hurt Bruno Silva, almost finished him, got on top and tried to finish a ground and pound. They're both at the same gym. They've had some sparring rounds together. The way that Cody approached this fight seemed to almost be having no respect for Bruno, and I could tell he's probably beat him up a couple times in the sparring. But fuck, Bruno Silva stayed composed. He looked like he was lost. He couldn't keep up with Cody Durden's speed, the grappling, the submission attempts. He was just being a reactive fighter that whole fight, up until that fucking uppercut, knocking out Cody Durden's mouthpiece and the violent ground and pound. The dude's on I think he's on a 4-fight win streak, all of them getting $50,000 bonuses. Bruno Silva just needs to stay healthy and stay active, and he's going to be a monster. Also, to go back and watch Haider Emil knock out Jiang Li. It took him 1 minute and 5 seconds in the first round. You could literally just go YouTube it. Pause this, go look that up right now. Cool. Now that you're back, Haider Emil landed like a 38 punch combination. Lee blocked all of them with his face, and I don't know how he stayed standing. He hit Haider Emil with one good shot. Haider Emil wobbled for just a hair, reset his feet, and then hit him with like literally a giant 38 punch combination. Don't know how Lee stood up to all those shots. That was pretty incredible. And Cody Gibson got his first like UFC win in a million years, and he actually looked really good. That's the card. We're gonna skip. That's out with the old first segment of the show. We're gonna skip the middle segment of the show because I really want to hyper focus on 304 because there's 4 fights I want to talk about there. So we'll be moving on to the next segment of the show. Moving on to the final segment of the show. In with the new, we're going to talk about UFC 304. Bunch of pretty damn good fights on. I feel bad for anyone that's over in the UK that has to deal with the start times. Start time's not good for them, but the end time is going to be real fucking bad. But really good fights on this card. Prelims are a little bit shaky, but there's some pretty good fights. I'm going to talk about 4 of them. First fight we're going to talk about is Muhammad Mokaev taking on Manel Kape in what seems to be a men's flyweight title eliminator. Odds on this fight are I must have accidentally clicked out of the screen. All right, there it is. We have Muhammad Mokaev as a -120 favorite. We have Manel Kape coming in at right about +120 as the dog. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Muhammad Mokaev is a -140 favorite. Manel Kape is a +120 dog. Interesting fight here. We have 2 guys that are very different in what they want to do and how they approach their fights. However, they're both elite top talent in this division. Manel Kape is a dude that came into the UFC and dropped 2 fights in a row. One of them to the current champion, so that's kind of no harm, no foul there. But after that, he did lose to Matheus Nicolau, and that was not really a win that's aged very well. Before he came to the UFC, he was a champ over in Ryzen. Guys like Kyoji Horiguchi gave him issues with the wrestling, and Pantoja and Nicolau kind of did the same. Last time out, Manel Kape took on a short notice replacement in Felipe Dos Santos, and Felipe Dos Santos seemed to really overperform because in Dos Santos' last fight, he didn't look awesome. But he gave Kape a lot of fits with just forward pressure and volume with the hands as well. Kape is an incredible athlete. I mean, you look at the way he went out there and like ice dudes like Azalga Zumagulov or Ode Osborne. He's definitely got the speed and athleticism and the power to change a fight on a moment's notice. But he still does have those issues with the grappling. Guys like Matheus Nicolau are able to, take him down. I don't want to say wear him out, but kind of take the wind out of his sails and make him just slow down in the fight. A perfect Manel Kape fight happens, just outside of punching range, at kicking range, where he can, land kicks and then leap into the pocket with incredible explosive speed and icy with something, really quick. He's got that Yoel Romero type offensive striking where it's just incredibly fast, incredibly powerful, and he is making a split decision at a moment's notice and fucking icing you when he does. Muhammad Mokaev, very different. Muhammad Mokaev is a guy that can seem lost on the feet in moments, but it's just a lights out grappler, Dagestani grappler from Russia, relocated relocated to the UK, to England, and now trains and lives there full time. Has lived there since he was like a teenager. Muhammad Mokaev, he is a guy that, even though he's so young, he's got the true young veteran. He's got that Jorge Masvidal in him, where he's maybe not going as hard as he should and he could, to finish fights like the Tim Elliott fight, prime example, where, you know, on the cards he was losing that fight until he went and got the finish. You know, the Jafel Filo fight, he like got his knee put in a knee bar. It looked like he almost tapped, but then he can come back and win, you know, via submission, via neck crank. The Alex Perez fight, where towards the end of the fight, Alex Perez started to defend those takedowns and look good, could be potentially concerning. The win over Cody Durden, even though Cody Durden just got knocked out, that's still a good win. The win over Charles Johnson, that's a really good win. That's aging like fine wine. When you look at these dudes' records, you can go to Sherdog.com. I would say Manel Kape, if you include dudes like Kai Asakura and Kyoji Horiguchi and Pantoja, he's fought the better dudes, but he's never beat the better dudes. In the UFC, I would say Muhammad Mokaev has not faced the better dudes in his career, but he's definitely beat better dudes than Manel Kape has. Like, he's just in the UFC alone submitted Cody Durden via guillotine. That's a good win. Ragdoll Charles Johnson, who just had a fucking incredible performance. Submitted Tim Elliott, who was a scrambly, wily vet, and then went out there and beat Alex Perez. I mean, before I started talking about this fight, I was kind of like just looking at it on paper, looking at the lineup. I'm like, yeah, Muhammad Mokaev is kind of overhyped. But when you really look at it and you see the deficiencies that Manel Kape has, I could really see Muhammad Mokaev going out there and, you know, doing what Kyoji Horiguchi did, or having the same success that Mateus Nicolau or Pantoja did. He's a better wrestler than Nicolau. And yes, he did fight Nicolau. I think it was like a 6-7. He fought Pantoja and Nicolau back to back with, you know, it's like 6 or 7 weeks in between those fights, whatever. That's a tough test for coming straight to the UFC, but it's not like he was some random prospect. Like, he was the rising champ and they brought him over because they wanted him to beat Pantoja and then fight for a title. He just couldn't do it. As much as I love Manel Kape, he's got funny moments in press conferences with Israel Adesanya. He's a lights out athlete. He could totally just splatter Muhammad Mokaev with a crazy jump knee, but I'm going to go with the young kid here. And I'm kind of surprised I'm picking Muhammad Mokaev here. This is going to be a hell of a fight. It's another one of the tale of two fights. If Manel Kape can keep this fight standing, he could land something with blistering speed and power, and just, you know, Muhammad Mokaev is not a dude that's comfortable on the feet, but he's young. He can make improvements. And maybe the threat of the wrestling from Muhammad Mokaev can open some of his strikes. Maybe the threat of the wrestling, you know, will kind of put a governor on Manel Kape's offense. Yeah, I'm going to go with Muhammad Mokaev to win a 3-round decision here. I think he's going to bag 2 rounds with grappling. Maybe he'll get a little tired, but at that point, Manel Kape's also been wrestled for 2 rounds. So give me Muhammad Mokaev to defeat Manel Kape via decision, and call for a title shot. All right, moving up to the featured bout of the night, we have, I want to still call him Bobby King Green. He's changed his name to King legally, I believe, but I'm going to still call him Bobby, versus Paddy Pimblett. And I will just say, if he finishes Paddy Pimblett, then I will call him King. But until then, he'll be Bobby Green. Odds on this fight are Bobby Green is a slight favorite. He is a minus 120. Paddy Pimblett coming in at plus 100. Sorry. Couple places you can find this at about pick'em odds, like minus 115 Bobby Green, minus 105 Paddy Pimblett. Pretty damn close fight per the odds, and a very interesting bout. Totally deserves to be the featured bout. This has got all the makings to be a really good fight. More than likely, probably better than the main event, and equally as good as Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blaydes. It's funny because as important of a fight as the welterweight, rematch for the title is at the top of this card, even if they got rid of it and they made this the co-main event and had Aspinall versus Blaydes as the main event, it'd be fine. Still, it'd be a fine card. Cool fight though. Bobby Green, OG of the game, that the dude's got an absurd amount of fights, 32 wins, 15 losses, 1 draw, 1 no contest. He is coming off of a really good win over Jim Miller. Jim Miller had been surging and looking really, really good until he ran into Bobby Green last time out, where Bobby Green just beat the shit out of him. I don't know how he didn't. It was on UFC 300, so they were fighting for that $300,000 bonus. And it was early on the card, so it's a fight that seems to be forgotten about. But I mean, people talk about the performance that Max Holloway put on against Justin Gaethje, which was incredible. Obviously, Jim Miller is not Justin Gaethje. However, this was a really one-sided fight. Jim Miller had a little bit of success. He buzzed Bobby in the first round of that fight, but then it just, once Bobby got rolling and he finds his distance and he gets his hands going, it's incredible. Before that, he did get knocked out by Jalen Turner, and it was a pretty quick turnaround. Like, he got knocked out really bad, like in one of the worst stoppages in MMA history alone. Like, it was a terrible fucking stoppage. That was in December of 23, and then mid-April of 24, just a few months later, he came and looked really good against Jim Miller. Knocked out Grant Dawson, one-shotted Grant Dawson back in October of 23, which kind of put him in the rankings. And then he beat up Tony Ferguson, even though he did get a little bit buzzed by Tony. Prior to that, he did lose to Islam Makhachev, and he did get knocked out by Drew Dober, and he had that no contest with Jared Gordon. The Islam Makhachev fight he took on short notice, and that was kind of just what's going to happen when Islam Makhachev fights someone like Bobby Green. It's not like Islam wouldn't do the same thing or worse to Paddy. And then the Drew Dober fight, that was back in 22 when Drew Dober was, that was probably the best Drew Dober we were going to see. And Bobby Green was styling on him until he got caught. The Jared Gordon fight, Jared Gordon doesn't get enough props for as good as he is. And the fight with him and Bobby was a really close back and forth. Bobby Green, I could go through his record. You guys all, if you listen to this, Bobby Green's record. The Nasrat Haqparast fight was great. The way he knocked out Ali Quinta back in 21 was like the best Bobby Green we've seen. And he's a guy that used to have these close fights where, he's 37 years old now. He's probably ranked top 15, probably 14 or 15 at lightweight. And he's definitely in the top 20 at lightweight. So this would be definitely Paddy's biggest bump and highest ranked and best opponent, in my opinion. Again, Bobby's been a guy that he used to kind of cruise and have these close fights where he'd make his reads, shoulder roll, parry punches, kind of lean his head forward, bait shots, and pull counter. It's a thing he loves to do. But he'd have these fights. Again, we talk about young veterans. He's not young, but just a veteran style game where, like, if he's not getting hurt, beat up, stumbled, he doesn't really feel like he's losing. And let me fix my camera. Sorry. And that's kind of how he fought against Thiago Moises. Like, I thought he beat Moises. And then the Fiziev fight, even though he lost that fight, that's a good performance. Rafael Fiziev is fucking dangerous. And the way Bobby was rolling on him in the third round was, really, really impressive. Just damn good. The dude's fought so many people. Like, he's gone on bad losing streaks, like where he lost to Dustin, where he got beat by Barboza, lost to Dustin Poirier. You know, he lost another split decision to Rashid Magomedov, and then he had a draw with Lando Venata. You know, he's had the bad losses, but he's also had the good wins. Paddy Pimblett, he is a guy that, number one, if he was just any random dude off the Contender Series, he wouldn't have 1/20th of the amount of hype he has. Came from Cage Warriors, double champion, really good on the mic, really good at selling himself, big, brash, braggadocious personality, bad hair. I shaved my head bald, so I'm not one to talk, but bad hair. Looks like the lost Elvis, or Elvis, sorry, one of the lost Beatles reincarnated. He is coming off of a ton of wins. I mean, the dude has not lost in the UFC at all. He came in, had that fight with Luigi Vendramin where he got buzzed on the feet real bad. The Jordan Levitt fight, won via rear naked choke. That was when he called out. The Rodrigo Vargas fight, he was getting lumped up really badly, had a good throw in that fight, and ended up winning via rear naked choke. The Jared Gordon fight was a really, really close fight. Kind of, I don't know. Probably Jared Gordon should have probably won that fight, but Jared Gordon's a good opponent. He's a good fighter. And the last time out, he fought Tony Ferguson. What Paddy is good at, he's a good grappler with no takedowns. He doesn't have a very good takedown game. He will, smash people against the fence, get a rear waist cinch, cause them to give their back, take their back. A lot of like standing back takes, a lot of leg entanglement, trips, stuff like that. But he's got good grappling. He's a really fun fighter. All of his fights are fun. He's definitely not the most technically sound dude. Comes forward, doesn't move his head straight up. When he fought Jared Gordon was just counterpunching him over and over again. He's durable. He gets hurt in like every single fight. He's been hurt in almost all of his UFC fights. He's been buzzed up besides like the Jordan Levitt fight. But he's still come out victorious. So he knows how to win. Someone like Bobby Green, really, really slick counter puncher, really, really good vision. Still, even at 37, still, with it athletically, really fast twitch, really just like really good shot accuracy with his strikes. Sometimes he will square up and, kind of roll with punches, shoulder roll, and then start throwing straights. But he's also really good at finding an angle, just take a step to the side, find an angle, and throw a clean shot down the pike, like how he did Grant Dawson. He's just a really accurate puncher. Decent kicks, will throw teeps. Paddy Pimblett running forward into clinches, he's going to give Bobby a lot of problems there. This fight is at home in his backyard, and I just don't see him taking like a back foot style. Weirdly enough, I think probably Paddy's best way to win a fight like this is to stay on the outside and force Bobby to be the one to go first. And then just try to meet him with power, because Bobby has been hurt in some fights. He's a durable dude, but he's definitely not the most durable dude on the roster. And Paddy does have power. But I think Paddy is just going to probably go out there and, there's the fucking kid show Beyblade, the thing that spins and just that's how Paddy fights. Like he's reckless with no striking defense, and he is going to run into you over and over again until you break. Will that work against Bobby? It could. Like Jim Miller hurt him, but I could totally see this fight looking like the Jim Miller fight. And Bobby's a dude that, like, you go look at the Rafael Fiziev fight. He's not Brazilian. Rafael Fiziev fight, where like you start turning it up against Bobby and he'll just meet your energy. I think Bobby's too slick here. He He could get caught. This fight could be, if this is a classic Bobby Green fight where it's really, really close and we don't know who won, it's going to be every time Paddy lands something, the crowd's going to go crazy. Every time Paddy throws something, crowd's going to go crazy. And Bobby, when Bobby does something, they won't say anything. Could be one of those fights where the judges are heavily influenced by the crowd. So Bobby's going to have to go out there and fight real serious. And lately he's been taking his fighting career real serious. He seems to have, Bobby's always got a chip on his shoulder. But the chip seems to be a little bit heavier when it comes to Paddy. This is kind of a bad fight for Paddy, a willing back foot counter puncher that's slick as fuck, has good submission defense, good takedown defense, and is just like an OG veteran. He's just wily, tricky, and he's got decent power. Give me Bobby Green to win a 3-round decision where he gets hurt, but he also hurts Paddy. But the third round of this fight, he is starting to roll and run away with it. One more bump up the card. We got the co-main event. Tommy Aspinall taking on Curtis Razor Blaydes. This is a rematch from Tom Aspinall's only loss in his MMA career, where he lost via first round stoppage, TKO due to knee injury. Interesting fight. We've got actually 2 rematches that had both ended in injury. I'm just realizing that now, in the co-main and the main event. So pretty interesting. I'm not sure that that's ever happened before. Odds on this fight are Tommy Aspinall is a pretty large favorite, minus 360. I've seen him all the way up minus 430, depending on the line you pick from. Blaydes coming back at about plus 285, plus 290 in most places. Interesting fight here. Really interesting fight. Curtis Blaydes is coming off of a win where if you just looked at the fight on paper, he beat Jailton Almeida, pretty hyped dude, good grappler, and he knocked him out with punches in round 2. If you go back and watch that fight, Jailton Almeida he's come up a weight class, but as the smaller fighter, went out there and absolutely ragdolled Curtis Blaydes and turned him into a takedown dummy over and over and over again, back control, all the things. But Curtis Blaydes made the adjustment, kind of put his weight into him, elbowed him a ton of times, and then finished him with punches. And Jailton just completely wilted. Prior to that, he did get knocked out by Sergey Pavlovich. Not the highest fight IQ fight from Curtis Blaydes. The Tom Aspinall fight, it's literally 15 seconds long. But what if you can take anything from the 15-second fight is Curtis Blaydes has seemed to be the only dude that was actually able to time and get shots off on Tom Aspinall when Tom Aspinall does his really fast leap into the pocket 1-2. Curtis Blaydes definitely did catch him. Curtis Blaydes did seem to have his timing and range right away in that fight. Was it luck? I don't know. It was 15 seconds long. That's all you can take from it, that when Aspinall leaped into the pocket, Blaydes hit him with a couple shots, and Aspinall kind of had to reset and reeled back and his knee blew up. Was the damage directly caused by Blaydes? It's not like he went out there and, did what Khalil Roundtree did to poor Modestas Bukauskas, who's the opener on this card, by the way. A fight like this, also too, Tommy Aspinall's nickname is the Honey Badger. I actually did not know that until right now. That's a bad nickname for Tom Aspinall. Either way, a fight like this is super interesting because if you go and look at Curtis Blaydes' record, he's the epitome of a heavyweight. Like he's good at something, but one thing always ends up exposing him. He's a good wrestler. He's a good grappler. He's got decent striking. He's knocked out dudes. He's knocked out dudes like Chris Daukaus. He's got decent power with his hands, and he's a guy that gets a little flummoxed on the feet, but you know, he's also a guy that, like, if you are a puncher, like, you're gonna knock out Curtis Blaydes. Even if you're Derek Lewis getting completely outstruck, and then the second that Curtis Blaydes starts to go in for a takedown, Derek Lewis finds a perfectly timed uppercut and just kills him. It's just funny because all the dudes that beat him are all punchers. Francis Ngannou, maybe the biggest puncher in MMA. Sergey Pavlovich, maybe the biggest puncher in MMA. Derek Lewis, maybe the biggest puncher in MMA. Is Tom Aspinall another dude that's just a fucking puncher? No, he's not. But can Tom Aspinall just be a puncher? I think he can. Tom Aspinall, he's never been into the third round of a fight. That is one thing that is a big question mark for him. Tom Aspinall, lights out athlete, incredible speed, really, really good power. Ask Sergey Pavlovich about that. Good power, good straight punches, good knees, venomous in the pocket, like the way he beat Sergey Spivak, that elbow to the knee to the body, like just fucking folded him like a lounge chair. Overall, in the striking, Tom Aspinall is faster than Blaydes and is definitely more dangerous, but Blaydes can hold his own there. I do think Blaydes can hold his own there. I try to find, when I'm picking a fight, I'm like, okay, well, what's going to be, if Curtis Blaydes is going to win this fight, what's his game plan? I think his game plan is to try to make this fight have to start the third round, try to wrestle with Tom Aspinall, but don't allow Tom Aspinall to be on top. Tom Aspinall is a very dangerous top player. He's got really, really good BJJ. But what is it like when Tom Aspinall's on his back and another 265-pound man is on top of him? Curtis Blaydes does have 5-round cardio. You know, like, look at the fight with Volkov. He was able to continuously take him down over and over and over again. Yeah, Tom Aspinall took Volkov down and ripped his arm off when he did like that. But what happens when, you know, Aspinall's the one on his back? What happens when Blaydes is mixing up his striking and his grappling? That's how he can have success here. Problem is, with Curtis Blaydes, that's been his biggest problem. Where does he get fucked up? When he tries to transition to his grappling. If he comes out and he just wants to be a grappler, he usually can do that. But if he starts trying to mix the martial arts, that's where he gets himself caught. Like, if he's just a striker, he can do pretty good. Look at the Derek Lewis fight. The tape is there. The second he tried to start mixing things, that's where he got caught. Fight like this, I kind of almost understand the odds, even though it's heavyweight, and I don't know if any heavyweight should be more than a 3-1 favorite. Well, I mean, okay, I'll take that back. If they're in the top 5 of heavyweight, I don't think any of them should be 3-1 odds over each other, just because they can all punch real fucking hard, and they're huge men that are athletes, and injuries, anything can happen. But it's hard for me to not see a route for Tom Aspinall here. Again, I do think we're going to be surprised with Curtis Blaydes in the striking, because Tom Aspinall is not the most unhittable dude. Also, too, you go watch that Andrei Arlovski fight where he started to kind of have a little trouble with Arlovski on the feet and had to resort to the grappling. But Tom Aspinall is so much more deadly on the feet. He's really good just outside of boxing range, and he's really good at getting into boxing range, and he's really good in the clinch. He's got really good elbows, good knees. I don't think he's as much of a threat when it comes to control grappling as Curtis Blaydes, but on top, he's got tons of submissions. He's, you know, the dude will kimura your arm and take it home. He will hit you with the heavyweight style submission. And in those moments where, you know, Blaydes may try to push Tom Aspinall up against the cage and make it slower, I think Aspinall, you know, can boom, hit him with chopping elbows and, you know, really make him rethink things and get underhooks and get out of there. I think the speed is just going to give Blaydes problems. Like, in the clinch, Tom Aspinall is big, he's strong, Blaydes may try to get underhooks and hold them against the cage, elbows there, knees, be able to turn him around and just get out. He just needs to be careful jumping into the pocket the way he does. He's the only time he wasn't successful doing that is when Blaydes caught him with that tiny little 1-2 and he blew up his knee. So he needs to be careful. Curtis Blaydes has fought everyone. He's fought the better guys. Has he, he's lost to them, but he's got a little bit more UFC experience than Tom Aspinall. Curtis Blaydes can make this an ugly fight, and I think that's his best key to win here. Hold Aspinall against the cage, make him tired, take him down, try to land some elbows later in the fight. But I just don't think that's going to work. Give me Tom Aspinall. I actually think he's going to knock Blaydes out in the first round. I think he's going to be a little bit more calculated, and Tom Aspinall actually just has to do less in this fight. Like, just be a dumb heavyweight puncher and go fucking punch him really hard, and that's how you win. Tom Aspinall, round 1 knockout. Main event time. We have the rematch. Leon Edwards taking on Belal. Remember the name, Muhammad. Odds on this fight. Belal Muhammad is a pretty big underdog here. Leon Edwards is a -238 favorite. Belal Muhammad comes back at +200. Both of these guys are actually surging and fighting, in my opinion, the best that they've ever have. Leon Edwards looked pretty good against Colby Covington, but turns out that Colby did break his foot in the first round of that fight. And when Colby actually went for it in the 5th round, he had tons of success. Before that, he had a kind of lackluster decision win against Kamaru Usman. But before that, he had the headshot dead moment where he was. A lot of people forget. A lot of people say Kamaru Usman was beating the shit out of him up at elevation in Salt Lake City. Well, Leon Edwards actually did cleanly win the first round and was the first person to land that like really sick trip takedown on Kamaru Usman in the first round. And then he lost rounds 3, 4. And then he lost rounds 2, 3, and 4. But then he came back and head kicked Usman. Even if he would have got a 10-8 in that round, that would have ended as a draw, which would have ended up in a rematch for their second fight. But I think that head kick really fucked Usman up mentally. He just seemed to be a little more gun shy. But then Usman looked pretty good against Hamzat last time out in a loss. The Nate Diaz fight was a really weird fight for Leon Edwards, where he was kind of cruising, and then he just had that lapse of judgment, which is something he does in fights, where he just has that lapse of judgment. He kind of takes his eye off the ball, and Nate hit him with that weird pawing straight down the pike and snapped his head back. And instead of going for a finish, he kind of points at him, laughs, mocks him, which is like, that's almost as good as a win for someone like Nate Diaz, for just that pointing picture to be out there. He kind of got out grappled by Gunnar Nelson, but that was back in 2019. And then he did look pretty good against RDA, but RDA is a lightweight. We all know that. Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad is a guy that gets a lot of hate. And I actually kind of understand why. He hate to say this, but he does seem a little bit annoying online. But that's just me. Maybe you love him. I don't know. He looked good against Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns like blew up his arm in the first round of the fight and couldn't, so both of these guys are coming off of wins over opponents that were like injured right away. So like, you kind of have to take that win with a grain of salt. Gilbert Burns is a good opponent. Couldn't really get the takedowns going, but I don't think he wanted them. His best performance by far is the Sean Brady fight, where he was training with Habib's team. He had Habib in his corner. You could even see Habib's like, throw the straight, and Habib's throwing the punch, and that's like as Belal's throwing it, and not like. I'll tell you one thing about Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad is a dude that he is one of the most coachable guys on the roster. There's a few guys that like you can tell that they're very fucking structured. They have very structured game plans. They listen to their coaches, and they're high performers because of it. You know, they may not be the best athlete in the division, whatever. Like a guy like Jack Hermanson. Look at Jack Hermanson's last fight against Joe Pyfer. Like Belal Muhammad is on that same level of just really, really coachable, listens to his coaches, devises a good game plan, and he can really, really stick to it. Belal doesn't take his eye off the ball. That and that could be a big factor in this fight. Belal Muhammad, he's not the biggest puncher. He like that one finish of Sean Brady, like that was his first finish in very longest time. Before that, he beat Vicente Luque in a rematch, and he looked really good there too. He's a guy that he's gonna tier every fight he has at this level has a tiered game plan for that specific opponent. Does he need to be on the front foot, jabbing, cutting the cage off, and throwing combinations like Sean Brady? Yes. Or is he going to cut the cage off, skirt the outside of the octagon, and then get takedowns and good ground control like he did against Wonder Boy or Luque? He can also do that too. He's got really good cardio and good pace. Like he can be a really strong pace fighter. He was getting lit up by Leon Edwards in their first fight. If that first fight never happened, these odds would be a lot closer. But Leon was lighting him up. But, you know, Leon Edwards had a bunch of success against like Nate Diaz in the first round and Kamaru Usman in their first fight, and then went on to lose a majority of the fight after that. Leon Edwards could be so much. I think he has all the skills to be like so much better if he was just like a venomous dude. Like if he had, we talked about Mike Perry earlier, if he had the Mike Perry tenacity, like if he just wanted to be a fucking killer, he's got such good striking, good athleticism, good length, good power. And I do low key think he actually hits harder than a lot of people than the tape shows. But he can be just so low volume sometimes, and he can just cruise. Like if you're willing to have the fight that Usman did in their second fight, like Leon's going to win that fight every time, or that Colby Covington, he's going to win that fight every time. But if you make it, you know, I'm going to reference the first Kamaru Usman fight here, where Kamaru Usman won clearly rounds 2, 3, and 4, and most of 5 before he took his eye off the ball and got head kicked for it. Wasn't luck, but I don't know if it clearly it wasn't. He couldn't repeat it again. Looking at this fight on paper, like you want to just scream Leon Edwards should win this fight because people find Belal Muhammad annoying, blah, blah, blah. But like Belal Muhammad has a really good chance here. Like Belal Muhammad could easily win rounds just off of pace and pressure, and Leon Edwards will be a reactive fighter, like if you make him into one. And I think Belal he doesn't have as many great tools as Leon. Like he's not nearly the crafty striker. Even with the grappling, like he's just not as crafty as Leon. He's not as athletically diverse. But he's smarter. I definitely think Belal Muhammad fights, you know, a lot smarter, and he can stick to a game plan. That moment of him getting buzzed by Nate Diaz, like that would never happen to Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad's taking this fight really, really seriously. I'm not sure Leon Edwards has a ton of respect for Belal. Leon Edwards has been talking, like, even up to last week, like, I don't know why I have to give this guy a rematch. I had to fight a bunch of times for my, you know, before I got my title fight, why he should have to do the same thing. I don't know if that means he's worried about Belal or if he's not taking him seriously when he should be, because Belal Muhammad is a serious threat to him, as you know, much as some of you guys might not like to hear that. I do think that's real. And I think there's going to be some sticky moments for Belal here. Like if Leon Edwards, it's funny because in that Belal Muhammad fight where he was just out there going for it and crushing him with kicks, hitting him with fucking clean shots, with his hands. Leon Edwards could just do that to Belal for like 3 rounds and win this fight. But that was like the last time he's gone for it like that. It's weird. I'm going to take Belal Muhammad as an upset here. I think he is going to have a bad round or two where he gets buzzed. The first round might look like the first round of their fight, but I think Belal Muhammad is a little more well-schooled. I think he's going to stick to a game plan. I think he needs to make this look like the Wonder Boy fight, mixed with the Sean Brady fight. And I think he's going to watch a lot of that first Usman fight with a lot of cage control, wrist control, mixing in the takedowns, jabbing him against the cage. Leon Edwards will take the back foot, and he's not as sharp of a counterpuncher on the back foot. He can be tricky on the front foot, but I think he needs to force Leon Edwards on the back foot here. Mix in his wrestling, mix it with the striking, cut the cage off, and just turn the pressure up. We know Belal Muhammad is good for high output, and I think if he forces Leon on the back foot, he's going to take a lot of those big offensive threats away. So give me Belal Muhammad to win a decision and to be a placeholder for Shavkat Rakhmonov, because Shavkat Rakhmonov is likely just going to kill Ian Gary and then fight the winner of this fight and likely kill them too. This is a really good card, guys. UFC 304 is going to be really dope. I am sorry for the small leave of absence I took, but thank you guys all for tuning in and enjoy the fights this weekend.